right, we have Melissa Pazinski, a practice manager, and Jim Klebon, a principal application consultant. I will hand it on over to you, Jim.
All right, thank you very much. And thank you everyone for joining today's session with regards to Vantagepoint upgrade. I know there's been a lot of information coming out from Deltek recently with regards to vision and the sunsetting of that application and what your options are and where all that's going. So hopefully through the presentation today, we'll be able to cover those items and answer your questions. Please use the messaging functionality so you can get your questions in, and we will go through those at the end of the presentation. But please use it because I want to make sure that we can capture that information for you and respond to it and get that feedback to you. Okay. All right. So moving along. So vision to Vantagepoint, why upgrade now, and why we will, and we'll take you through the 4-step process that Action uses for that upgrade process. And then, as I mentioned, end up with the Q&A. Okay. So I don't know if many of you have seen Vision, hopefully, our Vantagepoint, hopefully you've taken some steps to at least understand what that functionality is. And when you've seen it, I hope you've now appreciate the updated modern interface that Vantagepoint offers. It is been completely rebuilt, and in terms of the interface that you use to access the data within Vantagepoint. So it has a much more user-friendly design, and what I'd say is more efficient design as well in terms of being able to access the information, clean up information that when you migrate in terms of field layouts, adding new fields, screen layouts, and then when the system is set up, the navigation panel is now significantly improved in terms of how you want to see that data. You can set up your favorites, you can expand or minimize the menus, and set up favorites, as I mentioned, not only to access the hub areas, which replace the info centers, but also areas such as settings and utilities if it's something that you have more of an administrative role. So the application can be designed and customized to how you want to view the information. Also incorporating AI tools. So what was before Ask Della is now, or what was before in terms of accessing the information in terms of Hey Deltek is now Ask Della, and that's built into the application, can be turned on in the functionality so that you can take advantage of it. Also, help function is built into the database. So coming up to the question mark in the upper right-hand corner, clicking on that information, it does allow you to see a drop-down menu that provides access to learning aids, help screens. You can get to training videos from there as well. So there's a lot of access to your users to be able to get up to speed with what now Vantagepoint offers. The one area in terms I would say is more of a structural change with Vantagepoint versus Vision is it consolidates the opportunities info center with the project like info center to what are now in the project's hub. So you can manage the entire life cycle through the project's hub. It includes the pre-awarded life cycle, which would have been the opportunities info center, with now that post-award life cycle, which would have just been the project's info center. And so all that information resides in one location. When you hear this, people kind of get a little concerned that their information or data won't come over. They feel that this is going to be a major hurdle, but actually it ends up being a much more efficient way of using the application. All your data now is one location. So instead of having to go back to the info center for opportunities, maybe some of that data didn't convert all the way over to the project when you converted to project in Vision, now resides in one location. And you can still, have that information somewhat segregated from what was opportunity information versus what is project information based on the setup of the application and use of the different tabs, as well as drop-down capabilities within the actual layout. So something like key pursuit employees, that will automatically close based on when the project's awarded. So there's other areas in terms of pursuit details that also allows you to do that. So when you're pursuing the project, you can see that information. And yet when the project is awarded, it closes. You can always reopen it. The data doesn't go away. It just tightens things up on the screen. So for easier viewing and maneuvering through the overview tab there. And as I mentioned, it is more streamlining the process. And I find that people who are using the application adopt very quickly to the new format where the info center for the opportunities no longer exists. But as I mentioned, rest assured, all that data comes across into the Vantagepoint projects hub. So that life cycle, that pre-awarded life cycle, now resides in the project hub. So you're still tracking that information through the stages. You can still have your workflows that will automate processes in that pre-awarded life cycle and continue through that whole time frame. And then when the project's awarded, accounting will go in, fill in the information on the accounting tab, now make that project approved for use in processing. So now your professional team can start charging time and expenses to it. So it's a smooth transition from the early pursuit all the way through the awarded stage and all post-award through the project close. So it gives you all the opportunities to store that information in one location. A much needed and huge improvement is the dashboards. In Vision, you were pretty much stuck with one dashboard, and it provided some graphic in terms of the layout of that information, but I'd say most of the usage probably was just links to reports and some other information that might be stored in tables. The dashboards have been completely rebuilt within Vantagepoint, and you have access to multiple dashboards. So if you're in business development or marketing, you can have as many dashboards related to that business development process. You're not stuck to just one. So you might have one that is set up for the project pipeline and have different KPIs, such as the estimated fees here, as well as charts that provide you with additional information, as well as table formats for storing that data and presenting it in a more of Excel-like view. So these can be built out for really any usage you can probably think of in terms of data that you're tracking on the marketing business development side. And then you have all the other access for project management. So project managers can get up-to-date information with regards to the projects that they're managing. And it could be everything from open AR in the projects or estimated completion based on project plans, where they are in terms of hours against budgets. So they have a significant improvement of time and project status on their dashboards and determine where they're at in the process. Same with all the financial aspects. You could have principals that are owners of the company have a dashboard specifically set up for what they want to see and to be able to interact with them as well. So they do have drill down capabilities into the data that backs up things like the KPIs and charts. So it does allow that capability of drilling down into the information, and that even holds true for the table formats and be able to get information related to their projects. It also allows you to interactively pull information. So you can build the searches into the system for the data that's being presented, or you can allow the user to select different saved searches so they can update the dashboards on the fly and be able to see information based on different parameters. So you may have, in this case, a business development dashboard, and maybe you want to see it just by a particular stage or project type, and you can switch to that within the search here, and all the updated information will return specifically based on that search that you're selecting. So very interactive, and as well can be configured to your look and feel and provide you with quick information based on what your role is in the application. The dashboards I showed you there were more global dashboards. You can actually have personal dashboards set up as well. So might be things that you specifically want to see. And so you have dashboards that are, in this case, maybe the stages of the project based on ones that you're managing or your activities as part of your CRM process, and be able to give you kind of your to-do list of items based on the use of the activities feature within Vantagepoint. Pipeline, you could say this one's an interactive as well. You can say I want to search on this one by project type, but again, easily use these menu options to be able to select different parameters within this pipeline report to be able to update it specifically what you're looking for. So you have global dashboards, you have dashboards that might be rolled out by role, and you can also have them by individual user or person. Resource planning is another area of the system that was been completely rebuilt. So all your plans will come over, so no concerns there. And they have new functionality that really ties that whole project to plan process together. Before, you had a planning module that wasn't directly connected to the project. So now it's one seamless integration between the project and the plan. So if you were to set this up in the projects hub, set up your work breakdown structure, having all that information set up on the project. When you go to the plan follows that whole process in terms of that setup. So all the work breakdown structure will then exist in the plan itself, and then you can start using it to manage the life cycle of that project through assigning the different time frames for each of the phases and tasks, and coming through and then taking this information down to the firm and the lower levels of work breakdown structure, as well as assigning resources for each of those phases and tasks of the project. So it's the streamlined process really to take that initial project that started probably in the CRM process, that pre-awarded project, taking that to an awarded phase, setting up that project, and being able to take that information to the project plan. And then if you're using the resource planning module, that information carries over to that area of the application as well. So
I will say, just a quick note, we have found that many firms did a lot of customizations and processes to try to make plans populate within Vision, and it's really nice to be able to take all that out and just let the system operate. It's made a big difference in the communication of the system.
very good point. Thank you, Melissa. And resource management, so taking that now plan setup to be able to manage your resources on the projects, as well as checking their utilization to see if they're underutilized, overutilized, and then maybe being able to make those adjustments to their schedule based on maybe a need. You have a project that's requiring certain expertise or discipline, and can see that some individuals, Allison here is maybe a little underutilized, and based on her background experience, you may say, well, I need her for my project for this phase or task of the project, and then be able to assign her from here so that you can use her resource capabilities and utilization to provide services on your project. So quickly update that information based on looking at this data and make adjustments to individual schedules based on their availability and their expertise. So within the resource tools, you can actually search for people that might have certain availabilities as well as background to be able to find that match and then be able to assign them to new projects. So what's the process? Well, the process is to at least determine when you're ready to move to Vantagepoint. We will get into with some questions with regards to what's coming up, but we, here at Action, want to assure you that we have the right resources and background to get you to move through the process from Vision to Vantagepoint. Vantagepoint has been out for a few years now, and firms have made that conversion. Obviously, the information from Deltek with regards to sunsetting of Vision is now giving more of a timeline with regards to when that's going to happen. And so as part of that, if you've worked with Action in the past, we provide full services, both on not only the technical capabilities, data side of the application, but also all the application layout, screening, training throughout that whole process. So full service firm here with regards to getting you from where you are today through the Vantagepoint upgrade, and then any post-go live assistance that we can provide to help you with that process. The 4-step upgrade process. So we start off with the Vantagepoint Readiness Assessment and Report. This is a tool that we have to look at your vision data, everything from possible duplicates within the application, but also workflows that you may have in the system, reports that might have been configured or customized within the vision application, vendor records, anything that would be data-driven or configuration set up within Vision that helps us understand what your current Vision application data status is, and use that as part of a stepping stone to starting the Vantagepoint configuration upgrade. So things that we might want to have it clean, participate in terms of cleaning up that data, maybe reports that need to be reviewed, maybe haven't been used in a number of years, or were up, created 10 years ago and haven't been run in the last year or so. Be able to look at that information so that we can make some judgments and decisions based on what you're bringing over, what maybe can be eliminated, cleaned up, and prepare your really your vision application for that move to Vantagepoint. Step 2 is taking that information that we learned from the readiness report, going into a process here for planning that migration, and then taking that information to actually upgrade or configure the Vantagepoint system. The planning parts of this is where we're gathering information on how you're using Vision, maybe things that are working well within Vision, maybe things that you'd like to improve in Vision, using also best practices of how Vantagepoint is set up to be able to understand where we can take you with regards to your move from Vision to Vantagepoint, and so that you can take advantage of the application improvements to best serve your firm in terms of gaining some of that effectiveness within the new application. Once we learn that information, we take that as part of that upgrade or configuration of the application so that we can put those steps in place so that can help you better use the processes and systems within Vantagepoint to hopefully give you the advantages within your firm to easily transition to the new application. I'm sorry? So data cleanup and optimization. So information that we collected from that readiness report, and part of that planning, using that information, also that data cleanup, eliminating those duplicate records, or one of the areas of the system that's different within Vantagepoint. I mentioned the Opportunities and Projects Hub, but also the clients and vendor records. Those are now consolidated to one firm record. So that information comes across. If the records are linked within Vision, they will come over as one single record within the Vantagepoint application. So using that information in the readiness report to help in that cleanup process, make sure you're ready for that transition from Vision to Vantagepoint, and being able to carry all that data over through the conversion so that it comes over in a clean, optimized process into the Vantagepoint application. This is, again, a big win for companies because it is this opportunity now to look at that data, things that maybe over the years of using Vision have gotten maybe data-wise, maybe a fair amount of duplicate records, or things that you've always wanted to clean up and just haven't had the chance. This gives you that opportunity to get your application data back into an organized format and roll that out to the company in terms of the Vantagepoint transition, and be able to have a much cleaner, more efficient application, and take advantage of this time to upgrade that data formats. Configuration and launch support. So as we're taking now into step 4, we've looked at the planning, upgrading some of the processes. We cleaned up the data, optimized that information. Now we're finishing up the configuration of the system. Many firms might have a lot of user-defined fields that have been floated through the application over the years of having different users come in, update information. Maybe they left or moved to other positions, and those fields maybe at times the process made sense to collect that information in those fields, but no longer being used. So part of that configuration is, again, looking at those fields, Screen Designer, setting that up, and making those decisions whether that information's still being used. So getting the idea that we're moving this through a process to finally get you to what will actually be your go live timeframe. As part of that, we have go live testing so that we walk through the processes that we've set up with you to validate that the information is there, the configuration is there that you want to use, and really taking that step through that life cycle from beginning to end to validate that whole process. We have a go live simulation step that we put into place so that once all that testing is completed, we're going through it one more time before go live, so that we're really going to roll out this process, and we've tested the whole system from beginning to end. You're comfortable with how the application is performing, what the steps are. Hopefully got rid of some of those old bad habits, such as fields maybe that are no longer being used, or processes are they're not being used, reports that were out there that didn't serve the purpose any longer. We built those as well. So really taking that opportunity to now configure the system, clean it up, and get ready for that go live timeframe. So after the configuration, that go live simulation, the user training to your staff to get them up to speed in terms of how to use the system, and then going into that go live timeframe, preparing the system for that final step of going live, and then also providing a post go live services for that. Any questions that may come up, little tweaks to the system based on your go live, taking you through all the new systems with your team to make sure that they're comfortable, really making that transition to the new system as smooth as possible. So that is that go live and post go live support for your organization. Also with Action, we do offer services as effectiveness review, something typically we do at the beginning at the time of that readiness report. But what it allows us to do is, again, take a deeper dive into your processes within Vision so that we can understand how you're using Vision, how you can best transition to Vantagepoint using new functionality that's in Vantagepoint, but also any of those areas, as I mentioned before, that this is working for me. We'd like to continue to do it this way, or this is not working for me. We'd like to modify this process, or what's a new functionality in Vantagepoint that we can take advantage of and maybe eliminate some of the other processes that we had. As Melissa mentioned, there's the information such as that planning. Firms set a lot of workflows and setups and maybe stored procedures to get better use out of the project planning within Vision. Whereas in Vantagepoint, much of that's been incorporated right into that rebuild of the application for project planning and resource management. So that effectiveness review allows us to capture that information on how you're using Vision and where we can take it with regards to moving to Vantagepoint. Action also has these Vantagepoint tools. These are areas of processes the firm's been asking for. So we've built these and now are available for either automating certain processes such as the billing terms, other data analytics for dashboards and functionality related to getting information out of the system to best help you analyze that information. Fleet maintenance, companies have large number of vehicles, and this allows you to manage that fleet. That's an area of the application that wasn't served, as well as master services agreement. There was very little functionality that allowed you to track all the projects or tasks that might come under a master services type agreement. So allowing you a central location to consolidate the information from all the projects tied to that contract. Professional license management hub, another area where it allows you to go to one stop to, within the license hub to find that information and also manage that information. Revenue forecasting, 3-year revenue hub is synced within the firm's record to quickly see what firms have you've had revenue with over the years, and the user maintenance hub. All 3 of those areas also where allows you to quickly get information about areas of the system and manage them from those locations as well, so that you can gain in efficiencies that we've built into the system.
And Jim, you mentioned it well when you talked about, earlier, you said, streamlining the process. Clients and vendors together in one, it streamlined that. Projects, everything together in one package, it streamlined that. And I will say what we found is most firms are now that they can rely on the information, they have a seamless, streamlined process. They're like, what else can we just have here where we can build a one-stop shop and make it simpler for people to manage, holistically in their day-to-day. So
Couldn't agree more there, Melissa. Thank you. All right. We have some questions here. I'm sure, hoping that some have also been rolling into Melissa, but one big question is, will I lose my data? So question is one that's probably one that we hear the most, and it's a no. So you won't lose any data. It comes across through the upgrade from Vision to Vantagepoint. All your custom fields, any project plans, even I mentioned that it was been rebuilt, those plans all come across, and that information is not lost. One item I will mention is that the readiness report that I mentioned that might give you back information that might require cleanup. So that's things that we can address as part of the information during that conversion process. But the data from Vision does come over to Vantagepoint.
That's what it's the same database. It's simply being upgraded. So all your data really is there. Some planning data may not display for you if it wasn't connected to your project properly. But the readiness report reveals that. It gives you a list of, hey, here's the plans that may have an issue with that. So.
All right.
And our second biggest question?
Do I have to upgrade? Well, so Vision enters that sustaining support on February 1st, 2026. So this means that no code changes for maintenance, regulatory, or security issues. So you can continue using Vision up to that date, and you can continue using Vision after that date. But using it afterwards, it is not going to receive any more updates to the application. So there is probably a push to get you to move before February 26th, but I know firms I've talked to may not be ready by this time, but there is, want to make sure that you're aware that there will be no more code changes for updates needed to the system, whether it be regulatory or security issues. So that is,
Well, and it should be
where
noted
we're
by the
going.
end of, at the end of 26, in 27, that's when Deltek will start truly winding down Vision. So if you use the system for payroll, then you need to upgrade prior to the end of the year. The second aspect is there's a lot of people still on Vision. And as the time gets closer, anyone that has delayed, it's going to get more and more of a traffic jam, if you will. And so we suggest upgrading faster, sooner, rather than later, in order to make sure that you have, adequate time to think through it and work through the process, as well as adequate support from our team. One other question we got, Jim, is what are the most common hurdles encountered during a migration?
So I guess one that comes up is people typically say, what's my level of involvement? And because I have a current job I'm still doing, maybe accounting or business development. So that's where, it's a concern comes through. But firms find ways to, be able to accommodate that. There is a commitment, obviously from your side to be able to do this in terms of time. But what we try to do is schedule that so everybody knows that we meet on a certain day at a certain time and have that built into their schedule. And we go through the process that I mentioned in terms of planning out the process, configuring the application, testing and validating the process, selecting a go live for that, and making that transition as easy as possible. So it is, a concern from users that, how do I do this? And really talking you through that process, setting up a plan that's reasonable in terms of a go live timeframe, and allowing your firm to make that move from Vision to Vantagepoint. So I'd say that's one area that at least is a concern. I don't say it's as much of a hurdle once the process is talked through and your core team that on the client side is committed to making that change, as well as management making that decision. So maybe other people take on some assistance in terms of helping those people and the accounting or business development or project management process, so that this transition is made from Vision to Vantagepoint. I would say that's at least something that needs to be talked through, but I end up feeling that in the long run, it's a fairly smooth process and not as much of a hurdle of concern that people thought it might be. Other areas, I guess, in terms of question is, is Vantagepoint hard to learn? And, do I have to, completely retrain everybody from Vision to Vantagepoint? So number one, Vantagepoint is a completely updated application, but many of the processes on the accounting side is pretty much the same. You may have to go to new, menu to find a functionality, or layout's a little bit different on the screen, but for the accounting team, it functions very similar to how Vision did. It's got more functionality you can take advantage of, so improved processes. So that is, I think, a big win for the users of the application. But learning it, I'd say, isn't quite as change as moving from vision to a completely different solution. So Vantagepoint is going to function similarly as it did in Vision, so that learning curve isn't as large as people think it's going to be. In fact, people on the CRM business development side, I feel that they, if they were using the opportunities in Vision, make a very smooth transition to that process now that it's in the projects hub. That one usually is something people I have work with have a concern, but once they see it and participate in building it out, have a very feel very comfortable with that transition as well. So those are just a couple areas where I think maybe people, clients think it's going to be a hurdle, but talking through the process, I think very often it doesn't become quite the hurdle that they anticipate.
I would agree, Jim. And, we have clients that have said, we're going to do most of the work. We've had some that say, you guys go do the work, go clean it up for me. So the services range for what your needs are, depending on where you are in your business. It's a busy time for a lot of firms, and you do have a day job. But I would agree, Jim, the minute you go through the planning sessions, say this is the commitment, this is what we do, and this is how we do it. I don't know of any firm that said, oh, I just simply cannot do that.
Correct. Did we get other questions that came in?
So one of the questions was asked is if we assign a project manager or delivery manager for each upgrade. And the answer to that is yes. So you have a team that is worked through each time so that you have consistency.
Okay.
Jim, you've led many of these upgrades.
Yes. So we have a team of staff that has been involved with the Vantagepoint upgrade now for a few years since it came out, and it's just really the project manager to help you through that process, consultant on it to help in the delivery of the changes to the system, configuration, training, individuals available for training. So as Melissa said, we do have a team of individuals that signed your project to help you through this from beginning to end, and getting involved in that transition, and really hopefully streamlining your process with you and making those decisions. And again, between your team and our team, working for that process through the whole transition and upgrade.
And I think the last one comment I would have is the other concern we see is for go live. People are concerned, what's the commitment going to be at go live? And the system actually allows for us to get your preliminary database set up, and your preview is set up. You're able to put everything where you want it, set your security roles the way you want it. You're able to have all these items in place, ready to go. When you go live, you're able to take all those settings and transfer straight onto your go live, so minimizes any downtime. So that would be the other concern that we see is they're concerned about downtime, but we haven't found that to be impactful. Any other questions? And if you prefer to ask it out loud, you're able to, you can raise your hand, and Sullivan will unmute you. Perfect. I think
No questions?
What was that? We did just get a question. How long is a typical migration?
So it's somewhat dependent upon the size of the firm. I'd say how configured your application is. So some firms have taken great advantage of the user-defined fields and workflows and stored procedures and custom reports in their current vision system. and then, what processes are you bringing over to Vantagepoint? So there's a lot of different parameters, I'd say, that are involved with the determination of a time frame. I would say, if I'm thinking that 50 to 100 person type size of firm, I usually say 4 to 6 months. For larger firm, if it's 100 plus, 2, 3, 400, I'm probably going to say that 5 to 7 month time frame, maybe a little longer depending on the customizations. So it's somewhat dependent on a variety of different parameters, but and mainly based on how configured your current application is. So hopefully that gives you kind of an idea. Melissa, anything you want to add there in terms of timeframes?
I typically say 3 to 6 months, and that just, I agree with you. It's, if the team, if your team is extremely busy and you're like, oh, hey, we can only meet, 1 hour each week type thing in order to get information, obviously it's going to take longer. The more vanilla your system is, the faster it goes, just because you're not needing to make any additional decisions about your data, where it's going to go, how it's going to go. Those that have a lot of integrations with it, they're going to make some decisions. Do we still need this? Does Vantagepoint now serve our needs? Do we even need this external application? Does Vantagepoint now serve our needs for that? And with those decisions, there's more people involved, and that adds to your time.
It looks like we do have another question that came in as well.
Okay.
Let's see. Does your implementation cover all aspects of the migration? Data migration, configuration, reporting, etc.
So yes, it can provide you with all of those services through that process. We often find firms that maybe want to take more advantage of the CRM processes. They didn't do that in Vision. They're managing it either in another application that they want to get rid of because they want it all in one location now, or maybe they were doing it in Excel. So yes, we can involve that import of data. Maybe it's clients or contacts that maybe were outside of the application. So migration services in terms of data is included, as well as any maybe configuration, can help set up dashboards with you. If there's stored procedures that are needed because you want to automate some process that isn't possible within the standard workflows. So we'll provide full services through the entire life cycle of the upgrade.
All right, so I asked, is it the same person for these resources? And so without, throughout the same action person.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
So is the same resource used for the entire?
Yes, correct. You're assigned a team and you have those individuals. If we need to bring in somebody else because something comes up that is, maybe some additional technical assistance on a possible script or something, then we can bring in additional resources if necessary. But yes,
And
you
those are
get
action
a team assigned.
resources.
Right, that's what I mean. You have this resources that are assigned from the action team. Is that what the question was? I'm sorry.
Right. And so you'll have always the same person, but someone who helps you do billing and accounting and maybe, walk through those processes and learn, all the new features won't be typically the same person that's going to write a script. And so you may have different people within action, but there's always one person that's in charge of the upgrade, leading it, coordinating it at all times.